Well, this paper is about E.F. Schumacher, who was the author of a very significant book in 1973 called Small is Beautiful, the subtitle of which was The Study of Economics as if People Mattered. And this was a very significant book for an entire generation, for the counterculture and for the emerging environmental movement. So it wasn't a significant book for professional economists, but it was very important for a very, very large readership in many languages. And what's interesting about Schumacher is that he went from being a conventional economist, arguably influential upon Keynes, a Fabian socialist, to being a critic and a prophetic figure. It was quite a significant change in not his personality, but in his beliefs and his outlook. And what I do in this paper is to trace that change in Schumacher. And it's a change that involved what I call the garden, Gurdjieff and Gautama, which essentially means three things. He became involved in the emerging organic movement. He was influenced by esoterics, and particularly by Gurdjieff and the Fourth Way. And he became very interested in Buddhist philosophy, Eastern philosophy in general, but Buddhism in particular. And this change occurred over the period from the late 40s through to the mid-50s. And it was this change that took him to Burma. And it was there in Burma that he wrote a very important paper called Buddhist Economics, which eventually became the flagship chapter of his book in 1973. And so this paper is about this personal change that he went through, the things he read, the way his ideas changed, his emerging interest in the East, how all of this pulled him to Burma in 1955, where he spent 3 months. In Burma, he confronted American economists and engineers who had great plans for the development of Burma. And it was in resistance to this that he wrote this essay called Buddhist Economics, which was essentially an exhortation to the Burmese to hold on to their culture, not to capitulate to Western-led development. And it was a cry from the heart, this paper. It was a private paper. So that's what I talk about in this issue of the journal. I go into all of this in great detail. It's based on his correspondence, his papers, his private library, to all of which I've had access over the last few years. And so I think I've reconstructed a reasonably faithful and detailed story about what happened to Schumacher during this time. All of this it's part of a larger project on Schumacher, which I think will eventually become a biography, certainly an intellectual biography, perhaps even a fuller biography, recounting the story of his life and his influence. And what I've done here in the journal is to tell a significant part of that, out of which the book will grow. And there are many other significant parts as well. His involvement with Keynes, which is an entire story unto itself. His involvement in the development of intermediate technology. He was very keen on promoting this, and I think there are deep philosophical roots to this idea. It's related to traditionalism. So there are many facets to Schumacher, sort of ranging from the mundane to, I think, the quite deep and interesting. And I think there's a very, very interesting story there to be told, of interest to economists certainly, but also to a broader range of people. And I suppose the final thing I would say is that his book of 1973 was remarkably prescient. It bears rereading today, and he talks about things, environmental problems that have become even, much more significant today. So there was a terrible prescience to his work, which I think makes it all the more interesting.